things are playing out there. And as we move into the MMA world, things are also playing out with the heavyweight title. Jon Jones is now asking for more than $10 million to fight Francis Ngannou. And Francis Ngannou, at this point in time, according to reports, has turned down a fight with Derek Lewis.
Kind of seen this happening, man, because like John was asking for more money than what we knew Dana was going to pay. Let's be real. John said 8 to 10 million was too low, which is fucking crazy because Dana doesn't even pay the face of combat sports 8 to 10 million to show up. So when John was asking for that, it's like, yeah, John, you deserve your money. But if he's not paying his cash cow that, what makes you think he's going to turn around and pay you that? Right. And granted, John has made the UFC millions of dollars. John has brought in more numbers than Deontay Wilder. John has brought in, you could make the argument, outside of Canelo and Mayweather, John has sold better than Canelo, who's boxing's top star right now. If he was like, hey, I'll do 8 to 10 million, I think the UFC would probably cut him a deal with that. But since he said, I want more of that because it's too low, and then you have one of his coaches coming out saying like, hey, he needs to get at least 50 million, Dana's going to move on. And he already did at that press conference. And he was kind of like, he already alluded to it. Hey, we're going to see if John really wants to fight. I feel like I'm not mad at John for asking for more than 500,000. I'm not even mad at John for asking more than for $1 million, $2 million. I was talking to Nigel earlier. Hey, John's cap should be 10 million. Does John deserve more than 10 million if we're talking about the broader scale things? Absolutely. You know, I think John should be getting $25 million. But unfortunately, the UFC they don't pay their fighters like that. And that's a whole nother argument and all that stuff on UFC pay. But Dana doesn't pay nobody like that. He barely pays fighters $1 million to show up. If you're not Conor, you know what I mean? So John, I think he definitely priced himself out in that situation. And since he priced himself out in that situation, it gives a lot of people saying, oh, he was actually scared to fight Francis. I'm not saying he's scared, but at that point, it was like, okay, is this really about money, John? Or is this really about you wanted to beat Francis for the belt? If it was really about money, then I can understand why he was doing what he's doing. If it was really to beat Francis about the belt, yeah, you could say he priced himself out and ducked Francis.
I think it's a mix of both. I think he is pricing himself out. I think in terms of what he's contributed to the sport, yeah, 50 million makes sense. But in terms of reality, I don't think 50 million is actually going to happen. So
I'm going to let you finish your point. I'm sorry, man. This shit is crazy. I don't think he deserves 50 million. But when Conor was getting 100 million to fight Floyd, I don't think Conor should have got 100 million. But the way Floyd worked his magic, because Floyd is Money Mayweather, Conor was able to walk away with 100 million. Like, Conor is the face of combat sports, but he's not no $50 million fighter. Freaking Canelo, who's pound for pound number one, beating up everybody, he's getting 35 million. To me, you can't justify anybody getting paid more than him, Floyd, or Conor. So John asked for 50 million. Not only he's priced himself out, but also he's overpricing himself because he doesn't even have a million pay-per-view buy. He doesn't. His highest was 850,000. So
who was that against?
Daniel Cormier, the rematch.
Okay.
So if that's your number one buy, and you have other people like, you know, Brock Lesnar and other, I can name more people who aren't getting paid like you, but they, you know, selling more than you. You're definitely not going to get no 50 million. I think John deserves a lot of money. He definitely deserves to be in the tens of millions, but 50, asking that to fight Francis, come on, John. Like, what is your motive? Because you know Dana's not going to do it. You know.
See, well, Spence, do you want to give your opinion before I start?
I apologize, Spence. My bad, bro.
Nah, you're good. Like though I've heard your opinion, like I still believe like what he's contributed to the sport. Yeah, he deserves 50, but in reality, he's not going to get 50. I think in reality world, like I said, 10, 15 at the most is like what I think is it's possible because at the end of the day, the thing that makes that fight so big is the fact that he is going to be the opponent at the end of the day. Like, we can put Francis against anybody else, it's not going to sell as high. And on top of it, we also have to think about Dana. The biggest part of Jon Jones finding Francis Ngannou is that if Francis does what he's did to every other opponent to Jon Jones, you can sell Francis Ngannou pretty much to America. Not even to America, but to the world easier. 10 times easier because now he's beat someone that's more of a recognizable face, right? Stipe was a champ, X, Y, and Z. But when it's all said and done, he was never catered to and moved around like a heavyweight champ you would think of.
I agree.
If he fights Derek Lewis, knocks Derek Lewis out in the first 60 seconds. Oh, cool. Who else you going to give to him? Now your only best bet is having him fight Stipe. Just helpless animals into the den of the lion. But if you put someone like Jon Jones in there, it becomes I don't know if he can really. I think he could beat Jon, but I don't know if he could beat Jon. You're why I think more people, if you put Francis and Jon into the ring together, more people are watching to see if Francis can knock out Jon, if anything, because it's at the end of the day, Jon Jones is considered by many, if not all, but by many as possibly the greatest fighter of all time, right? Granted, the steroid stuff and everything, but all that aside, like Jon Jones has a right to ask for a lot of money. I just don't think what he's asking for I think what he's asking for is just a little too, is going to price himself out, but I think he also understands his worth when it comes to this fight is only big because I am part of it. So
Jon Jones isn't wrong for asking for more than $10 million. Like, he deserves more than $10 million, but there's being right and there's being realistic. And I think just because he's right doesn't mean he's being realistic. Clearly, the UFC is willing to move on and possibly miss an opportunity for one of their biggest heavyweight fights ever, to have him fight Derek Lewis in a fight that, God forbid, Derek Lewis hits him with one of his, signature punches, he knocks him out, and then all of a sudden we miss out on an extremely profitable fight in Francis Ngannou and Jon Jones. I think Jon Jones is not going to get paid more than Conor, and if he is getting paid more than Conor, it's going to be in the 10 million range somewhere. It's just the way it goes. I don't think Jon Jones is wrong for standing on his shit, to try and get paid as much as he can. But I think 50 is a lot of money. And I think there's only but few people doing that. And Jon Jones is not one of them, unfortunately, especially where he's at. You know what I mean? Basketball players aren't asking for baseball money. That's just the way it goes.
But because, they don't have, once they get caught up to that point, they will. Because look at Steph Curry, right? 400 fucking million, 400 plus million. That's baseball money right there. That it's going to come to the point where basketball players are going to start getting the baseball money on average.
But how many basketball players are getting paid like baseball players at this moment today?
No, yes, very few. But the fact that it started, it's going to start, in 10 years, we'll see more of it happening. That's what I mean.
I mean, in 10 years,
Yeah. Okay. But, 10 years might seem a long time, but 10 years from now, when, you're on the fucking rocking chair, you're going to look back and be like, oh, okay, Lau was right, But the thing with Jon, we all can agree this dude is an 8-figure fighter, hands down.
Yeah.
Giving Jon 50 million is unrealistic. It would be fair for Jon for him to get to 50 million, but it's something that's real. That's just will not happen, and Dana will not do. Like I said, he paid Conor McGregor $5 million to show up and get KO'd. He's not gonna. But Conor, if you look at the top pay-per-views in the UFC, the top 5, they're all headlined by Conor. The top 5 pay-per-views across anything, wrestling, boxing, Conor is in 2 of them. So that goes to show you why he's going to give 50 million to Conor first before he even thinks about Jon, despite the fact that Jon is vastly the better fighter, more respected fighter, et cetera, et cetera.
The greatest of all time.
Yes. It's just that when it comes to this, money talks, bullshit walks. Unfortunately, for Jon's situation. If he was like, hey, 8 to 10 million, I think the UFC would cough the coin up. But the fact that it's rumored, around 50, a lot of people are kind of like, hey, man, you ducking Francis. That's what it sounds like.